Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I can't even get a video done because there's so much, like I'm staring at so much information coming out right now that I'm like overwhelmed. So I'm doing the best I can do here. Let's go ahead and get this one out, and then I'm gonna have to start doing 3 videos a day if it keeps up like this. But first I want to show you that in the midst of all this drama and FTX stuff, Judy Shelton says central bank's gold demand hits record level. And then the CEO of Glint, one of my sponsors, had put a pretty interesting little tweet thread together. He says, crypto ecosystem has many benefits, but FTX scandal brings these points to mind. A Glint client, gold cannot be used as collateral, lent out, put at risk. Unlike within the crypto fiat currency systems, Glint Pay cannot print or issue its own currency. Gold is created when neutron stars collide. Although gold is not regulated, Glint is regulated by the Bank of England Financial Conduct Authority. Unlike with crypto, gold cannot be hacked. Although Glint enables use with electronic payments, hackers haven't yet worked out a way to dematerialize it and steal it across the wire. So, lesson here, folks, is I'm doing both. I mean, I'm buying gold in my Glint account. They even have a way that you can turn it into physical gold. And then I am, of course, buying my XRP, my XLM, and a few others, which, you know, that'll continue to be done because we're about to roll into a new financial system. Link to Glint's in the top of the description. You can click on that, tell them DAI sent you. Don't forget that this week is Ripple Swell. I can't remember. Does it start? Let's see if I can get this to pull up. Oof, did I just lose my place? November, what are we on? The 5th, the 14th is today. So 2 days from now is when it starts. Okay. Now, let's move along. This morning, there was this. You got to see this. We got to start here.
Losses in more assets and more traditional assets. I know you're expecting a settlement tomorrow in the lawsuit between the Securities and Exchange Commission and Ripple. The SEC's filing from 2020 alleged that Ripple Labs and 2 of its executives raised over $1.3 billion through an unregistered digital securities offering. This is a separate case, but your thoughts on whether any of this has the potential to take down other markets like the stock market?
Absolutely, Maria. Well, it goes to your first point. When contagion happens, it's because everything is cross-collateralized and the system at large based on credit is so fragile. So we do see Bitcoin drawing down, and we can see other assets drawing down as people liquidate in order to cover cover their margins and their shorts. And so I think what's important to know about the SEC and Ripple, and it'll be interesting to see what the verdict will be, is that the SEC charged Ripple with violating securities law and argues that it passes the Howey test. It says that it's a common enterprise, an investment contract, and a common enterprise. And the big thing I want people to remember, no matter what happens tomorrow, is right now you can go to Twitter or Google and you can find Ripple's CEO. And Ripple is the largest holder of its own token. Sound familiar? So if there's a CEO, if there's a company, if there's a pre-mine, a foundation, an ICO, it's not Bitcoin. And be careful trusting your life savings to a CEO.
Wow. So she's she's Bitcoin maxi but here's the thing, folks. And then Eleanor Terrick came out with this. Per a Ripple spokesperson, this morning's report on an expected settlement between Ripple and the SEC tomorrow is false. So if that's false, this would be a complete, I mean, this wasn't like she thought maybe or whatever. This was like a bold-faced lie. Now, my experience with rumors and things like this is that when something like this comes out, it doesn't come out of nowhere. There's always some grain of truth. I don't know what's going on here or what the play is. What I do know is that she's a Bitcoin maxi and doesn't know what she's talking about with regard to Ripple. But something's going on here. I don't care if it's false or not. Something's going on here. So you keep your eyes on that ball. Now, I want to, against the backdrop of all the the market going down and getting crushed and all that, and the FTX scandal and all this stuff, I want to remind everybody, because I was here, I've been here since 2013, but I was here in 2018-19. The crypto market at that time got down to as low as $100 billion. And for those of you that weren't there at the time, during that time, it was a question as to whether this industry would exist or not, okay? In fact, most of the Wall Street people were out there saying that it was not going to exist. We knew better. We knew that they were lying while they were building, and they were going to say that so that they could buy on the cheap, okay? But I want to remind everybody, it went down as low as $100 billion. Yesterday, this market got down, the furthest I've seen it go down is $830 billion. I think today it's like $850 billion. I remember that $100 billion back then in the real crypto winter, and so my point is that what's going on right now is nothing for me. I don't know your situation, but for me, and I'm not a financial advisor, but for me, it's a buying opportunity. In fact, I'm positioning myself today to buy the dip. Don't know what I'm going to buy the dip in yet, but this is an opportunity for me, is the way I see it. And I've also said for 4 years now on this channel, okay, that like people right now, the whole thing is withdraw your crypto to hard wallet and all that. Well, I've always thought that the plan, because think about it, there's a reason. Think this through, folks. Just think it through. There is institutional, the whole issue in all of this is custody, okay? When you go and you buy, I've said this for years, when you go to E-Trade and you buy stock, there is a stock certificate somewhere, and you don't worry about that stock certificate. You're not worried about your ownership because you bought it on E-Trade. That stock certificate is being custodied by someone like a State Street. Their business is to take all those stock and bond certificates and everything else, excuse me, and to custody that. And the whole concept is we're Wall Street, and you've been able to trust us for hundreds of years custodying your stocks and bonds and all this. And so you don't have to worry about that stock certificate. And until there's that, you're not going to fully trust digital assets. Well, guess what? I've told you this for 4 years. The plan is very simple. At some point, Wall Street is going to be, while they've been building behind the scenes and positioning themselves with the custody, at some point they're going to raise their hands, and they're probably going to get an alley-oop from their buddies like Gary Gensler. They're going to raise their hand and say, see, we told you this was all dangerous, but guess what? Now we have digital asset custody, and just like your stocks and bonds for the last 100 years, you can trust us. And so what you need to do is take your digital assets and put them with us. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, whoever, JP Morgan, because now we have custody. So I don't know how they're going to trigger this and all, but this is how this story ends, folks. And anybody that tells you down with the banks has not lived long enough, and they don't know what they're talking about, because the banks aren't going anywhere. They may look different, but the powers that be are not going anywhere and never have been going anywhere. And so, don't know how they're going to do it. But I do know, and I literally can see myself walking into one of these banks one day, or maybe you don't walk into it, maybe you just pull an app on your phone, but transferring from these hard wallets on into one of these traditional places, or maybe it's a new place that's got the backing of the traditional system. You know, it may be, hell, maybe it'll be, in my dream world, it's Ripple Bank that's got poly-signed custody that's backed up by the government somehow or whatever. But that's going to go down, okay? Just write it down. Have you ever asked yourself this question? There is institutional grade, Coinbase has it, institutional grade digital asset custody. Now, if they've got institutional grade digital asset custody, it's really just a push of a button to offer that to retail customers. Why have they not been allowed to offer it to retail customers? That's by design, folks, because when the time's right, all of a sudden, oh yeah, we've got it for retail customers. That's how this story ends. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out, folks. Okay, now I had blown a lot of time, but I'm gonna try to not make this video more than 15 minutes, okay? Now, Yesterday morning, I was watching this Twitter Spaces with a lot of these blockchain guys. Brad Garlinghouse comes in, and they were talking about FTX, and asked him for his thoughts on it. But the problem is the thing's full. The Twitter Spaces is full of a bunch of Bitcoin, Ethereum maxis, and so they go after Brad Garlinghouse. And I put the whole video up, but I wanted to just address this clip. These ETH people have, since I got in this, they've been going after Ripple any chance they can get about, well, you own a lot of XRP, but they never, ever, ever. It drives them crazy that Ripple's putting out a quarterly report, but they never, ever, ever ask the same questions to Vitalik Buterin or Joseph Lubin or about consensus or about the Ethereum Foundation. Never, because they can't. Those disguised whales are the holy grail, folks. Those disguised whales expose a lot of these people, and they do not and cannot ever let the conversation go there. And listen to this.
What advice would you give to the companies that have large token value on their balance sheet? How do you think they should manage selling those tokens without causing issues when they're trading against their consumers or manipulating prices? How do we solve that?
Transparency. Look, I mean, there's a kind of well retweeted clip of me on stage with Joe Lubin at the World Economic Forum.
These jokers get so quiet at the end of this, it's like they're having a moment of silence.
Years ago, and frankly, Joe's going after me about some of the same questions you're asking me, and I said, wait a minute, Joe, how much ETH does Consensus own? He wouldn't answer. How much ETH that has Consensus sold? He wouldn't answer. So look, transparency is our friend. And I think I would challenge the whole industry just to be more transparent. Whether you are Consensus and you own a lot of ETH, and I think to this day we don't know how much, or you're a project like Library that just has one. You are the token. I think transparency is our friend.
Oh, do they get quiet, don't they? Okay, so anyone, I ask this because look, I've made a decision on this channel. I think I heard BitBoy say it, but in the gist of it's this, folks. This FTX rabbit hole. This is much dirtier than anybody really sees. This goes all the way to things we can't even talk about on this channel. Okay, and I've told you the things we can't talk about on this channel, and we won't because it's not worth it for me, okay? But I am willing to walk to the edge, and this is my edge. Has anyone considered that FTX was a setup from the beginning? And I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying this is kind of what it looks like from afar. That it was set up from the beginning to hide and continue crimes that had already been in progress possibly for decades. Folks, this is just a smell that's coming. I'm not saying that's what happened. It's just a smell. This is the org chart of SBF. And this guy here says his father was an expert in tax shelters and professor at Stanford Law. On an entirely unrelated note, this is FTX corporate structure. Now, folks, the Library CEO or Library had tweeted how their organizational chart was just Library, and he said this is what is given a free pass by the we're going to call it the FTX. Ooh, that's a thumbnail, boys and girls. The FTX free pass. Let's go ahead. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one that gets the credit for that because I created the Ethereum free pass slogan too. This is the FTX free pass. And it's Gary Gensler's Madoff. This is Gary Gensler's Madoff right here. You're looking at it. And if you follow the money here, the trails that lead here are going to go places nobody could even imagine. And this is another chart. These two charts alone, if we still have laws in the United States, if the powerful are still accountable to the laws, which I don't think they are anymore. I think that our country is now a banana republic. But if you just hypothetically, if we had a country of laws that applied to everyone and you do nothing but follow the money and I don't know anything about it, but I think that one's kind of interesting. But if you did nothing but follow the money, you are going to find everything here. But I don't think we have a Congress. I don't think we have a Justice Department. I don't think we have any of them that are really interested in what happened here. I think that there's too many of them that are somehow intertwined into it. And it's a sad state of affairs for the future of this country. This guy, he's one of these venture capitalists. He saw it. Listen to this.
He pitched us in that $17 billion round, and I did a Zoom with him. And after the Zoom, I'm like, this doesn't make much sense, but I'll have my team do some work. We did some work, and we sent him a 2-page deck. And we said, here are our recommendations for taking the next step. One was the formation of a board. The second was the creation of dual class stock. The third was some reps and warranties around affiliated transactions and related party transactions. And the person that worked there called us back and literally, I'm not kidding you, said, go fuck yourself.
Wow. Okay, now Stuart Alderati has weighed in. Now, Stuart Alderati, I see folks to think that ETHgate and maybe FTX gate. Well, it's an FTX free pass. Maybe it's FTX gate. I'll go ahead and coin that term too. FTX gate. That might be even better. But I think from reading this that Stuart Alderati obviously thinks that this thing is just as relevant as ETHgate is. Investigators should ask, was Gary Gensler acting alone when meeting with SBF? Was this last gasp effort to finally manufacture that ever-elusive SEC registration the chair has been after? Would SBF have ended up with even more consumer assets under his control? If the SEC was actually crypto's lawful cop on the beat, there would be no need for the chair to repeatedly cajole market participants to come in and register. Regulators with proper jurisdictions don't need to cajole, bully, or enter into backroom deals. Backroom deals, we're going to have to put that on the thumbnail. All right. That's why regulation by enforcement has been the SEC's go-to. The tortured enforcement process itself is the punishment, which is why most settle. With settlement in hand, SEC then pretends it has lawful jurisdiction, when all it really has is a coerced surrender, mafia-style surrender, which has led to disastrous consequences. For example, in February, the SEC trumpeted a $100 million BlockFi settlement and a commitment by BlockFi to register with the SEC, but BlockFi couldn't afford to pay the fine and nothing was ever registered. Instead, they were allowed by who to be rescued? By Sam Bankman-Fried. Isn't that weird, folks? Does anybody find that weird? That Sam Bankman-Fried comes in and rescues BlockFi, okay? And by rescue, that's the question. It says, got access to BlockFi's assets, including customer deposits. And once again, the bankruptcy lawyers are getting rich while consumers are being left holding the bag. Folks, can you see it? I'm going to finish with these two tweets from Wheezy. During Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs paid to play. That's why Goldman got bailed out and Lehman didn't. SBF went to get went to get the playbook from David Solomon, Goldman Sachs CEO. Look, meeting. This is a meeting with Sam Bankman-Fried at the SEC. Look at this. The future. FTX and Goldman Sachs, two major strands evolved out of their discussion. David Solomon and Goldman Sachs met with Sam Bankman-Fried. One where Goldman would help FTX get regulatory approvals. All right, and then there's this one. CEO of Goldman Sachs, David Solomon, met with SBF to help FTX get regulatory approval. And here's a photo of Alameda CEO, Caroline Capital's dad, Glenn Ellison, with Gregory Palm, former top Goldman Sachs lawyer. Right here. That's her dad, and that's the former Goldman Sachs top lawyer. And this is the meeting with freaking Goldman Sachs. Does my 10-year-old need to draw you a freaking picture, folks? I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that my son can draw you a picture, but I'd have to bring him out of retirement And if that doesn't work for you, then we do have this beautiful igloo for sale. Our temperatures have not touched 32 degrees all year long, but we do have a beautiful South Georgia igloo for sale, and it is very expensive for any of you that are buying any of this BS that we're watching.